Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Ji-Chul, co-chair of PEMNA Steering Committee and Director General for Fiscal Performance at the Korean Ministry of Economy and Finance. Since taking office as a co-chair of PEMNA Steering Committee, our interactions have been limited to online meetings due to the prevalence of the COVID-19. I'm delighted to greet you face-to-face finally through this plenary conference. I'd like to thank you all for joining this event, especially my profound gratitude goes to Manuela Pero, Vice President of the World Bank, Her Excellency Maria Castillo Fernandez, EU Ambassador to Korea, Her Excellency Maria Teresa B. Dijon de Vega, Philippine Ambassador to Korea, His Excellency Datuk Lim Jin, Malaysia Ambassador to Korea, for joining us today. I'd also like to thank the delegations from PEMNA member countries and those who work hard to make this event possible. Initially, PEMNA was envisioned as a community building network where public financial management practitioners share their experiences and best practice on fiscal reforms through continuous exchange and cooperation. It was launched through an inaugural meeting held in Thailand in June 2012, and the first high-level conference was convened in Seoul in December 2012. Since then, PEMNA has held 10 plenary meetings and 34 COP meetings successfully, becoming a forum for active discussions between PFM practitioners and experts from around the globe. Regular face-to-face sessions help to build mutual trust and a sense of unity between our members of PEMNA. We have also arranged 8 study visits as requested by member countries to learn best practices from each other since 2015. PEMNA activities served as a stepping stone to the development of PFM systems of member countries, as seen at the 2016 plenary meeting held in the Philippines, where the results of study visit to Korea for Korean government's accrual accounting system were referenced for reviewing PFM's accounting framework. With the enthusiastic participation of member countries, PEMNA has grown into a leading PFM network in the Asia-Pacific region through PFM-wide conference and study visits and so on. Starting from 2021, we embarked on phase 2 of PEMNA by introducing policy advisory service and research projects in response to policy needs from member countries. The Policy Advisory Service Program is to support member countries in their capacity building. So far, a total of 3 policy advisory programs have been conducted: Indonesia's ICT budgeting, East Timor's issuance of government bonds, and the medium-term expenditure framework and the performance evaluation for Cambodia. The first policy advisory report was released in June this year, and I'm excited to see how it would turn out in requesting countries. PEMNA also developed policy briefs and in-depth research for demand-driven researchers. Among them, a policy brief on medium-term fiscal strategies in Korea and BCOP in-depth research paper on fiscal sustainability are available. Malaysia's accrual accounting and cash management and optimization report are scheduled to be published later this year. I hope these reports will help guide member countries in their search for institutional improvement. Despite difficulties due to COVID-19 situation, we stood unwithered and we marched on. We held the 5 peer learning events both in 2020 and 2021. And early this year, we held 2 COP meetings and 2 online study visits. In particular, we shared experiences how member countries responded to the challenges relative to the rapid spread of coronavirus by opening an emergency conference. Furthermore, Indonesia requested a study visit on how the Korean government responded financially to COVID-19 this year, and we were able to conduct an in-depth discussion. PEMNA continued to strengthen cooperation channels with the various international organizations and complements multiple experiences and accumulate knowledge with the expert groups outside of PEMNA. In 2020, we organized 2 joint seminars on budget transparency with International Budget Partnership, and experts from prominent international organizations, including OECD and IMF, have shown their interest through continued participation in PEMNA activities. PEMNA is growing with the support of international organizations. In order for PEMNA to grow further, I firmly believe that we need to deepen and widen this network in the future. First, we need to deepen PEMNA by developing and strengthening programs based on newly introduced projects. In the case of advisory service, we are considering a shift from the current type of advice presented in a report to an on-site advice provision, in which the advisory team visits a requesting country to diagnose their problem and to design and propose a customized solution. A follow-up review will be also offered to enhance the effectiveness of consultation. In case of research projects, we should aim to develop new projects such as a reform of PFM system to make tangible changes. Second, I hope we widen the boundary of PEMNA, open a new decade of PEMNA, expanding the membership of our organization to the entire Asia-Pacific region, and reaching out to fellow PFM organizations in other regions will result in the accumulation of our knowledge, which helps each member countries find out adequate solutions. Today, I'm delighted to have an opportunity to hear from Vice Minister Choi from Korea's Ministry of Economy and Finance about the directions of Korea's fiscal reform, and hear from Ms. Lucia Piana from the EU and Mr. Irgis Islamaj from the World Bank about how governments around the world cope within the post-COVID era to secure fiscal soundness. Each COP session will discuss policy directions and the fiscal reform experiences on how to restore fiscal soundness and sustainability, which I hope participants find informative and constructive. As you well know, during the pandemic, fiscal policy played an active role to cope with the economic shock caused by quarantine measures and blockade. With limited physical space, however, we are confronted with the task of persisting fiscal innovation, and thus it is essential to learn lessons from other countries' cases. I look forward to PEMNA serving as a knowledge hub to fulfill the task above, and Korea will continue to strongly support the development of PEMNA as a member and as a co-chair of the steering committee. Before I finish my speech, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who devoted themselves to the successful opening of 2022 PEMNA Plenary Conference. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General Bae, for your great keynote speech. And now, next, Mr. Minhyeong Kim, Deputy Director of Fiscal Consolidation Division of the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Korea, will deliver a speech focusing on Korea's public financial management related to the main topic.
안녕하십니까. 저는
Good morning. My name is Minhyeong Kim. I'm Deputy Director working at the Ministry of Strategy and Finances, Financial Soundness Performance Division. I intend to speak in the Korean language, so please make sure that you utilize the interpretation kit to listen to my speech in English. And now we'd like to begin a presentation on securing Korea's fiscal soundness and sustainability. So far, Korea has been making efforts to increase welfare spending to improve people's quality of life and investment also for the future of the growth. We have been making efforts to secure fiscal soundness in doing so. The deficit in the operational budget balance, excluding Social Security Fund balance from the consolidated fiscal balance, has been maintained at -2% of GDP, and the national debt to GDP ratio has been stably managed at less than 40%. However, the situation is saying to change significantly during the COVID-19 pandemic period. In order to protect the lives of people and respond to the economic downturn, a different and more active fiscal role is required in Korea. In order to prevent the further spread of the COVID-19, we need to strengthen our quarantine measures and purchase vaccines. And we need to provide unemployment benefits and employment stabilization subsidies to respond to the impact of the job market, which has been felt in a very negative manner. And we had to compensate for the damage to small and medium businesses that participate in social distancing measures. In 2020, when we have declared COVID-19 as a pandemic, the government has organized 4 additional supplementary budgets to support quarantine measures and also to provide protective measures for the small businesses. As a result, the ratio of the operational budget deficit to GDP increased by 3% percentage point from -2.8% in 2009 to -5.8% in 2020. The national debt to GDP ratio has also increased by 6 percentage point from 37.6% in 2019 to 43.6% in 2020. The crisis continued last year and this year because of the Omicron variant and so on. So the government has put together 2 additional supplementary budgets. In 2021, the ratio of the operational budget deficit to GDP was -4.4%. This is a slight decrease from the previous year, but is still maintained at a very high level. And the national debt to GDP ratio has also increased to 46.9%. This year, the ratio of operational budget deficit to GDP is expected to be -5.1%, while the national debt to GDP ratio is expected to be 49.7%. It's an unprecedented crisis, so it was an unavoidable financial expenditure to respond to such crisis. But the fiscal conditions has deteriorated significantly because we had incurred a deficit of about 100 trillion won every year for 3 years, and national debt increased by more than 300 trillion won. And this is a common occurrence. It did not just happen in Korea, but it happened in countries all around the world. The reason that Korea was able to maintain high external credibility, the credit ratings, in the midst of COVID-19 was because of its sound financial structure. But recently, there are growing concerns about fiscal soundness of Korea. Credit rating agents are saying that they are concerned about Korea's expansionary fiscal stance. If it is to be maintained, it could act as a pressure factor on the credit rating, on the downgrading of the credit rating. It goes without saying that the government's role should be to inject the fund when it's necessary, but the fiscal resources of the government are limited. It is not possible for us to invest indefinitely. So if we find that we had fulfilled such a certain role, the government should make sure that the fiscal the soundness is restored by moving away from the expansionary fiscal policies so that we can ensure fiscal sustainability. We want to make sure that we maintain, we secure the sustainability of the public finances, and we need to be responsible in operating our public finances for the future generation. So we are making a switch to sound the financial structures, fiscal management, as opposed to expansionary fiscal policies. On July 7th of this year, the President has organized a National Fiscal Strategy meeting for 2022, where the state councilors and major personnel from the ruling party participated to talk about the operation of the public finances. It was decided to shift the fiscal stance from expansionary policy to a sound policy. And we decided to introduce fiscal rules and restructure these spending without the sanctuary. So we look into all areas possible for the possible reform measures. And we have also come up with the supplementary, budget for 2023 on August. We will do what we can to make sure that our fiscal structure remains sound while doing the fiscal task of protecting the vulnerable. We hope to, through our budget plan, go through a restructuring of expenditure by 24 trillion won, but this is the largest ever. And as a result of such efforts, the ratio of the budget deficit to GDP will improve to minus 2.6%. In the medium term, we plan to improve the deficit in the operational, budget balance to mid-minus 2% levels and manage the national debt ratio to GDP at mid-50s range. And this is going back to the pre-COVID level for the operational budget, deficit. And I think in terms of the growth of the national debt, I think we're going to be in a much more improved situation than previously. Meanwhile, the government believes that we need to fulfill our role in strengthening social safety net for the low-income people and for the socially underprivileged and disabled. We need to expand support for them. Efforts are being made to come up with an institutional foundation to sustain such sound finances. The most representative action we are taking is adoption of the fiscal rules. Korea announced on September 13th that it will introduce the fiscal rules. And from now on, I'd like to talk a little more into detail about the fiscal rules. I believe that the fiscal rules are essential in maintaining a sound fiscal structure. This is the most strong form of tool that we can have to maintain the soundness. For Korea, the fiscal rules can be characterized by a simple structure, having a strong binding force, and having a strong operational capability. For example, we are going to apply the universal balance rules applied in the international community. We'll make sure that the operational budget deficit to GDP does not exceed minus 3%. This is going to be the ceiling. And we are going to also use the debt indicators in an appropriate manner. If the national debt to GDP exceeds 60%, we are going to bring down the ceiling of the operational budget deficit GDP to minus 2% to slow down the rate of debt growth. And also we are going to maintain a very strong binding force. In order to do that, we're going to set up the basis and limits of the fiscal rules and have that enshrined in the national law. And to do so, we are pushing for the revision of the National Finance Act, which is the basis for the operation of the national finances in Korea. Finally, for war, large-scale disasters, recession, etc., we want to be able to respond properly to such events. So we have also established a rule exemption in our provisions. And also in doing so, we plan to review the limits for these every 5 years, and we're going to operate them flexibly to suit to the changing economic and financial conditions. And even if before these fiscal rules are enacted, we'll make sure that the rules are implemented to the best of our abilities in operating the public finances. There are many countries participating here today. I understand that many of you have fiscal rules in place. We may be rather belated in doing this, but we would like to join the ranks of the countries that operate the fiscal rules by taking expedited actions. I think the financial soundness is similar to building a dam. So if you want to maintain a fiscal soundness, that means that you're going to have to build a dam. This is going to take a long time, a long labor. And but if you have a dam, then you'll be able to protect us against natural disasters such as flood. So that's what fiscal soundness stands for. But fiscal soundness is invisible. So it's more difficult to build the fiscal soundness than to build a dam. Nevertheless, it is necessary for the people. And because of that, Korea will continue its efforts to maintain a sound and sustainable public finance. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.